Here we are on letter F, and it looks like we've got a big square root and then a bunch of stuff inside, which means we're going to have to do the chain rule, and inside of that chain rule we're going to have a quotient rule. Okay, nothing wrong with that. We can handle that. We're all very intelligent little people here, or big people. I don't know who you are really. Anyway, f prime of x, we're going to drive the square root, which is really to the 1/2 power. So we have all that crap in there to the 1/2 power. That's the outside layer. So to derive the outside layer, we multiply the front by that 1/2. The inside stays the same, which is sine of x squared. That's a squared. Over 2x squared plus 3. And that is going to be, it was to the 1/2 power, but when you derive it, you subtract 1 off of that. That's to the negative 1/2 now. Now we just derived the 1/2, so now we're going to multiply by the derivative of the inside. And the inside happens to be a big quotient, a big fraction. So we need to do the quotient rule, which says derive the top times the bottom. That's the first thing we're going to do. So to derive the top, we need the quotient rule here as well, because we have x squared inside of a sine. There's nothing wrong with that. We're going to derive the outside first. The derivative of sine is cosine, and the inside stays the same. Then we multiply by the derivative of the inside. Well, the derivative of x squared is 2x. And that's the derivative of the top. We're going to multiply that by the bottom. 2x squared plus 3. Ain't no thing. Okay. Minus, now we're going to derive the bottom. Well, the bottom is just a polynomial, so we're going to do the power rule, and that's going to turn into 4x, and the derivative of 3 is 0, so that doesn't even need to be there, times the top, which is sine of x squared. That's all going to be over. Here we are. 2x squared plus 3 squared. Okay, again, when you're driving that quotient, you're not even looking at the square root. You've already taken care of the square root. Then you move to the inside. So technically, you're done. We can do a couple things to simplify this. First off, anything to the negative 1/2 power, anything to a negative exponent really flips the fraction. So really, that's going to be 2x squared plus 3 over sine of x squared. And that's going to be to the positive 1/2. Now we also have this 1/2 out front here. All I'm going to do is multiply him by this fraction here. So we're going to end up with still a big fraction, but 2x squared plus 3 squared. And again, this 2 right here just came from the 1/2. If you don't like it, you can leave the 1/2 out front here. It really doesn't matter. We're going to have cosine x squared times, and this we can multiply pretty easily. 2x times this thing, that's going to be 4x cubed plus 6x minus, and we can't do much with this part over here, 4x times the sine of x squared. And there you go. You're done. That's the best you can do. And you're right, that's super nasty. This is probably a little bit harder than anything you're even going to come across on like the AP exam or anything. I'm just making sure you can do these rules. Okay, so I'm just putting them all together. Nothing crazy, just following some rules. If there's one thing I know about teenagers and college students, is you love to follow rules. So I'm just giving you an opportunity to do what you love. All right. Anyway, it's not even funny. I'm tired. What are we at? G here. So we want y prime or dy dx. We're going to do the product rule because we got 5x cubed times the square root guy. So y prime or dy dx, which is the derivative of y. The derivative of y with respect to x. I know I talk fast on here sometimes. I'm trying to work on that. Dy dx, we got to do the product rule. So we're going to derive the first thing. 5x cubed, when you derive it, turns into 15x squared. Times the second thing. We're not deriving that second thing yet. So the square root of secant of 5x. Okay? Plus, next we're going to leave that first thing the same, 5x cubed, and multiply by the derivative of what's inside. I'm sorry, not the derivative of what's inside, the derivative of the second part of our product, which is the chain rule we got to work on now here. So we got the square root of secant of 5x. The outside layer is square root. So we'll derive that first. We're going to have 1/2. The rest of this stays the same. Secant of 5x to the negative 1/2. And we're going to take care of that negative 1/2 in a second. Times the derivative of what's inside of the square root. We just derived the square root. Now we look at what's inside. Secant of 5x Again, we need the chain rule to derive that, but that's okay. We're just going to derive secant first. The derivative of secant is secant of what's inside times tangent of what's inside. So we're going to have secant of 5x, tangent of 5x. Just like that. And then we need to multiply that by the derivative of what's inside of the secant over here. Well, that's 5x, and the derivative of 5x is 5. And again, we are done the calculus. But just to handle our negative exponents, this first part is all good. Nothing wrong with him. Plus, here we got the negative exponent, we got the 1/2, so we know we're going to have a fraction. Nothing wrong with that. We're going to have 2 square root of secant 5x. You can also write secant of 5x to the 1/2. It doesn't matter, but it's to the positive 1/2 now because we moved it to the bottom. Then we're going to have 5x cubed times all this crap. And there's another 5 back here, so that makes it 25x cubed times secant of 5x, tangent of 5x. And when you derive secant and cosecant, make sure you keep what's inside the same thing. And it has to have an argument. It's not secant tangent x. It's secant of something times tangent of something. Okay, so make sure you put that in there. Because there's a difference between, I want to roll here now. There's a difference between secant of tangent of x and secant x tangent x. There's a difference between those two things. They're not the same thing, so just be careful. That's all I'm saying. Alright, let's get out of here. What was that? It was g, so we're on h, and that's an r, is the cubed root of theta cosine theta. Well, whatever. So now we need r prime, or dr, d theta. Don't freak out about the letters. R is the dependent variable, just like y was before. So when you derive y with respect to x, you get dy over dx. Right now we're deriving r with respect to theta, dr d theta. No problem. So, outside function is the cubed root. That's really to the 1/3 power, so we derive that first. 1/3, what's inside stays the same. Theta, cosine theta. And now it's going to be to the negative 2/3. Now we multiply that by the derivative of what's inside of that cubed root. We're peeling away the letters again. So we got theta cosine theta, that's product rule. We'll derive theta first, and theta is just like x, it's just a variable. So when you derive x, or when you derive theta, it just turns into 1. So we have 1 times cosine theta plus theta times the derivative of what's in, or the second derivative of the second thing, which is cosine. That turns into negative sine theta. There we go. So dr d theta is really, now we got to rewrite this whole stupid thing here. The negative exponent goes on the bottom, so the 3 is on the bottom from this 1/3. There's really a 1 over 3 here. This is to the negative 2/3, so we'll just put that thing on the bottom and make it to the positive 2/3. And we're multiplying by this junks here, so it's going to be 1 from out here, this 1 times cosine theta minus theta sine theta because of that negative. There you go, you're done. Congratulations. 2 left. That was h, right? Yeah. We're on I and j. Okay. Let's do these things. Let's knock them out. I. W of x equals this business. We're going to multiply. It's a product rule. We got the chain rule happening inside. Ain't no thing. W prime of x is going to be equal to. So, product rule says derive the first thing. To derive this first thing, we derive the outside first. Derivative of sine is cosine. The inside stays the same. And then we multiply by the derivative of the inside, which is just 10x. Cool? That's the derivative of the first thing, times the second thing. Cosine root x. Plus, now we're going to derive the second thing. The derivative of cosine is negative sine. The inside stays the same. And then you multiply that by the derivative of what's inside, which is 1 over 2 root x, or 1/2 x negative 1/2, whatever. And then that's the derivative of the second thing. We're going to multiply that by the first, sine 5x squared. 5x squared, and there you go. That's the whole thing. And just to rewrite it, so we got everything together here, we're going to have, I'll move the 10x out front, cosine of 5x squared times cosine root x, which we cannot put together, even though they're both cosines. They have different arguments, different things on the inside of the parentheses, so you can't put them together. Minus, and this thing's going to be a fraction with 2 root x on the bottom, and sine root x times sine 5x squared. There you go. You're done. That's w prime of x. We'll do j in the next one. Take it easy.